All right, here we are. Another episode of the Upper Midwest Old Time Listening Party. Tonight's a special episode. We're doing our Bruce Bollerud tribute show. This show is, important because Bruce died this last week, and we wanted to pay a good tribute. We actually had him on the show not more than 4 weeks ago. We did a phone call with him, and he was an old man, so he was sounding a little bit slowed down or whatever, but it was still really good to talk to him about his music. Goose Island Ramblers was his band. It was an awesome band from Wisconsin, a really great traditional band. And if you've seen the show, we've talked about it. They played all kinds of different stuff. They did Norwegian humor songs. They did old Norwegian tunes. They did all kinds of different Scandinavian songs. They even did standard old time songs, country and western songs, but they did everything with a nice Wisconsin humor and wit. They'd often segues in their middle of their songs to make elaborate jokes and stuff like that. So they were quite a band back in the day. And now that Bruce is gone, they kind of are no more. Now the Goose Island Ramblers are no more. But we're not here to get down in the dumps, or you know, we're here to rise up, and we're here to actually party. It's called the Old Time Listening Party, so that's what we're gonna do for Bruce tonight. We're gonna party, and I couldn't have done it this week without all of his different friends and musicians that he learned from coming together and making this show possible, coming out of the woodwork and sending me stuff. So that's gonna be a fun night. I put it all together today, and I think it's just pretty great programming. And I hope it pays a good tribute to this man. I was kind of late to the whole Goose Island Ramblers thing. It was a Wisconsin band, and for a while, me being in Minnesota, I just didn't pay enough attention to it. I knew that they're a legendary traditional band from Wisconsin, but I never just spent the time listening to them to probably like a year ago. So I'm really late to the party, and we're going to talk with a bunch of different people about how they were influenced by Bruce and how they were influenced by the band. We're going to talk to people he's known for 50 years. We're going to talk to people who've just learned his tunes. So it's going to be a cool show. Let's start off, for those of you, we want to start off on kind of a blank slate here for a lot of you, and let's talk about the obit so that we can get in our mind what we're talking about here. I'm just going to skim through this. But Bruce Bollerud, age 85 of Madison, passed away Tuesday, August 11, 2020. He was born on October 8th, 1934, on the home farm in Hollandale, Wisconsin, the son of Orville and Selma Bollerud. Bruce attended rural grade school and graduated from Hollandale High School in 1952. He served in the U.S. Air Force in 1956. He got married to Gloria on March 25th, 1961. He graduated from the U-Madison with a bachelor's degree in special education and a master's degree in counseling and guidance. And then he taught school at Dane County Special Education for 7 years and Middleton Cross Plains School District for 19 years. Goes on to talk about his music. Bruce enjoyed music and played instruments most of his life, including the bandoneon, piano, trombone, and accordion. He played along with many musicians. They list all the different musicians he played with, including all the great old-timey fiddlers that he got to learn from when he was a youngster. He also played in his bands, the Good Time Band and the Goose Island Ramblers. He enjoyed listening to music, reading, tracing the family tree, traveling, visiting friends and relatives, and being with his family. Bruce is survived by his wife of 59 years, Gloria, sons Jack Bollerud and Orville Bollerud. He was preceded in death by his parents. So, we're going to jump right into the tunes here. This is a great old Goose Island Rambler tune. We got this from Ditz Bruce. Ditz Bruce helped him set up his deal that he had with Mel Bay to record these great books. One was Ufta, which is all the old tunes that he heard from all the old fiddlers. He learned on the accordion, and he put out this great book of basically Wisconsin fiddle tunes on accordion. And so this one comes from Ditz, the person who helped set him up with helped set him up with Mel Bay, who put out his book for him. So here we go. Out behind the barn, this is the Goose Island Ramblers.
My pappy used to tend my hide out behind the barn. He taught me to be dignified out behind the barn. When he took his strap to me and turned me down across his knee, it sure did hurt my dignity out behind the barn. Well, I got my education out behind the barn, and I'm not a fool no siree. Not me, passed each examination out behind the barn, and it almost made a wreck out of me.
You better have a drink.
Don't mind if I do. Take a drink. One little slurp here.
The beer is wonderful, folks.
Good for your teeth. Well, I smoked my first cigarette out behind the barn, and that's one day I won't forget out behind the barn. I got so sick you should have seen that tobacco turned me green. I almost died from nicotine. Oh, out behind the barn. Well, I got my education out behind the barn, and I'm not a fool no siree. Not me, passed each examination out behind the barn, and it almost made a wreck out of me.
Looks like the Easter Bunny's coming a little early.
Mel Humble. Liquid eggs. Mel Humble just sent up some liquid eggs.
Liquid eggs. Wow! Good old Easter Bunny. Well, I met a pretty girl one day out behind the barn. She wanted me to stay and play out behind the barn. She taught me how to kiss and pet, and that's one game I won't forget, 'cause we still play that same game yet out behind the barn. Well, I got my education out behind the barn, and I'm not a fool no siree. Not me, I lost my reputation out behind the barn, and it almost made a wreck out of me. Oh, clear Goose!
Give him the jug. Take the jug on the course. Here we go.
I gotta practice up on that triple tonguing there a little bit. Well, I wish that I could go again out behind the barn and do the things that I did then out behind the barn. Well, you may think it ain't no fun to be a poor old farmer's son, but you don't know what all I done out behind the barn. Well, I got my education out behind the barn, and I'm not a fool no siree. Not me, I got my vaccination out behind the barn, and it almost made a wreck out of me. Yes, it almost made a wreck out of me.
So that's what happens when you get three really talented musicians together who like to be silly and like to also be serious at the same time and play good tunes but also freestyle at the same time. You get the Goose Island Ramblers, which is just amazing. They can like go into other tunes in the middle of tunes and come back, and they don't seem to care. It's all part of their deal. So very interesting band, and it's too bad we've lost them. Next up, we're going to have Rick March. And Rick March was one of the ones who did this Down Home Dairyland program with Jim Leary. Jim Leary we've had on the show before, and he'll be on tonight too, because these are two buddies of Bollerud and both the Goose Island Ramblers. Big fans of Goose Island Ramblers. In fact, Rick March has known the Goose Island Ramblers for a real long time, going back to the 60s. So we're gonna turn it over. He's gonna do a Bollerud song here himself here, just recorded the other day in Portland, Oregon, where he now lives. So this is a real treat. We're gonna have a bunch of musical guests tonight. This is just the first.
All call me Oli. I don't know how they found out my name. I never told none of them fellers, but they all call me Oli just the same. My name is Oli Olsen. I just come over from Norway. I land in New York and I can't find no work, so I think I'll head west right away. So I buys me a first class train ticket, and I buys me a 10-cent cigar. The conductor comes in and says, Oli, get back to the immigrant's car. Oli Olsen, yeah, they all call me Oli. I don't know how they found out my name. I never told none of them fellers, but they all called me Oli just the same. I just got $1.50. I buys me a bottle of cola on a hell of a bender I went. Now Oli, said a cop with brass buttons, Oli, you just come with me. He beat me, he banged me, he knocked me, locked me up with a big brass key. Oli Olsen, you hobo from Norway, you got drunk and you went on the spree. I fined you 10 days and $10, and I hopes you remember this day. Oli Olsen, yeah, they all call me Oli. I don't know how they found out my name. I never told none of them fellers, but they all called me Oli just the same.
right, so that was Rick March. Great to have him. I didn't even really know him until just this week. So, that's what I like about this show is I get to meet some of the legends. And I would consider him a legend in seeing as how, him and Jim did that great show, that Down Home Dairyland show, which I just find so fascinating about all great music from traditional Wisconsin it was. But, it's long been gone, but it was a great show, and you can still find the archives at the University of Wisconsin Archive Library. Next up, we're gonna really have them show off here. This is a Finnish tune, and it's a great one called Sakajärven Polka.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, so clearly gifted musicians they were. I mean, they like to be funny and irreverent, but also they can really get down on a tune really, really well, as they proved there with that great Finnish tune. Um, well, we're gonna have a special presenter throughout the course of this show, and I'm just gonna jump right to it. It's always great hearing stories from the great Jim Leary.
Bruce came from a little place called Hollandale in southwest Wisconsin. A lot of Norwegians there, some Swiss and so forth. And years ago, I used to teach Folklore Wisconsin every year, and I'd make students do fieldwork projects. And one of them was from the Hollandale area in Iowa County, around where Bruce was. And he wanted to do a paper on little esoteric sayings in his family. And when I got the paper, one of the sayings had to do with when you were having a especially contested euchre game and someone won the final trick, they'd slam the cards down and say, "Take that, Bollerud." And I thought, what in the hell is that? And so I asked Bruce, and he laughed like hell. And he said his dad, Orville, was kind of a feisty guy. He was a big dairy farmer, and every now and then he could be seen on a bar stool in a particular tavern if it was a day when he was thirsty. And there was some guy who had it in for him for one reason or another, and went into the tavern and saw this figure that he thought was Bruce's dad on the bar stool, but actually it was Bruce's dad's brother. Who looked just like him. So the angry fellow went up, spun around the guy on the bar stool, punched him in the face and said, "Take that, Bollerud." But he got the wrong guy. So yesterday when I went through the drive-through visitation for Bruce's funeral, his wife and two sons were there, and I told that story, and of course his wife had heard it many times, and Bruce's dad was named Orville, and one of Bruce's sons is named after Orville. So he got a kick out of that story.
So that was Jim telling the first of his stories here, and he'll be back later to present some tunes and give some intros to some tunes that are really great. So their big hit, as most of us know, I guess if you know the Goose Island Ramblers, you know their big hit was "No Norwegians in Dickeyville." And even when we were talking with Bruce before he died 4 weeks ago, he took special time to talk about this tune. Very very proud of this tune and how much it got around not only Wisconsin but the country. So yeah, so that led me to this next interview here. We're gonna. I called up Dickeyville to try and get some answers about whether there are Norwegians in Dickeyville. So instead of getting into it, I'm just gonna play the interview I had here with a lovely woman named Karen. All right, so this is Clawhammer Mike back here on audio with Karen Reese. I called up Dickeyville. I tried to get an interview with the mayor, but the mayor was too busy today, which I totally understand. But what we're going to talk to Karen about today is we're going to talk to her about this tune, No Norwegians in Dickeyville. You know, it's the Bruce Bollerud tribute show, and this was his most famous song and the song that he was the most proud of. And so we decided to get a hold of Dickeyville. I called up the city office, couldn't get an interview with the mayor, so they sent me to the town's kind of unofficial historian here, Karen. And I know she knows what she's talking about. I can tell she's an authority. So Karen, what can you tell us? You know, are there Norwegians in Dickeyville? Is there Norwegian heritage in Dickeyville?
No, there is not. This is a German community, and there's never been a Norwegian that I know of.
So not one Norwegian that you know of in Dickeyville. Now I thought we would call, and I thought for sure this was just a gag bit on his part. He wrote the song and probably, you know, I don't know exactly what year, but a long time ago. And I thought it was just a gag bit, but it's true that you don't know of any Norwegians in Dickeyville. Is there any Norwegian heritage in the area there for sure, right?
There is in Grant County, but not down in the southwestern part of Grant County.
Uh-huh. And what's the coolest thing about Dickeyville that we should know about?
Well, we're kind of known because we have what we call the grotto. It's a patriotic shrine along with a religious shrine put in stone, and it's outside. Anybody can stop and walk through it at their leisure.
I've seen the pictures. It's really, really pretty. I got to get down there. Any notable folks come from Dickeyville that we need to know about?
I can't think of anybody that's, you know, notable.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. There's like hardworking, good folks everywhere. You know, you don't have to be famous to be awesome and be a hardworking, good community. And do people still play traditional German music around there at all?
I think it's a mixture. They do play the German music, but I think it's a mixture with the rock, the country,
Right.
anything, the pop.
Well, Karen, I want to thank you for taking your time out today and telling us that there truly are no Norwegians in Dickeyville that we know of. Maybe there is one hiding out, but at least that we know of, there's not. So thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
There's no Norwegians in Dickeyville, none in the valley and none on the hill. There never was and there never will be no Norwegians in Dickeyville.
There he goes. Loose Bruce the Goose, the Hollandale Wildcat, the scourge of Iowa County. Leader of Wisconsin's biggest little drinking band, the Goose Island Ramblers. That last pitcher of beer was sent up by the Easter Bunny. That's all we know.
Olson in Dickeyville. No old Olson nor Paul on the hill. No Peter Swenson living down by the mill. There's no Norwegians in Dickeyville. There's no Norwegians in Dickeyville, none in the valley and none on the hill. There never was and there never will be no Norwegians in Dickeyville. No Norwegians in Dickeyville, not one.
Well, there was their hit, and indeed, Karen might have confirmed there that there is no Norwegians in Dickeyville. Wasn't Karen just great? She really came through in a pinch. You know, couldn't get a hold of the mayor. I tried for like 3 days, but Karen, man, unofficial historian of Dickeyville. And now we gotta go visit the Dickeyville Grotto and give them some business down there. Down in that's just below Minnesota, down in central, what it would be, west central Wisconsin down there. Next up, we're gonna have so that was a tune that was given to me by Ditz Bruce, and it's from that Live at Packer Inn tape that they did. It was a tape back then that they did in the 70s, the Goose Island Ramblers. So now so the other thing is we have the Goose Island Ramblers, and then we have these great tune books that Bollerud put out, one being the accordion book, and then Ditz Bruce, who set him up with the original Mel Bay, contact to get him the book contract. He then did this mandolin book. He transcribed the tunes to mandolin, and so both of these books are kind of what musicians nowadays are kind of treasuring, and it's a way to keep Bruce's music alive, So we're gonna have Mary Pat here. She learned one of these tunes out of the accordion book, and she's gonna play it for us right now.
My name is Mary Pat Cleven, and when Mike asked fiddlers and musicians to step forward and record a tune from the Bruce Bollerud collection that inspired them in his memory, I recalled getting my book last year, the Accordion Ufta book, reading through the whole thing, and I was delighted to see that he had collected a tune from an Andrew Cleven in Stoughton, Wisconsin. Who knows if it was pronounced Cleven? There's Clevens, Clevens, and Clavens. We're all related from Norway. Apparently the name didn't translate quite that well into English. So I'm really delighted that Bruce took the time to record all this wonderful history so that our family does have a tune from Andrew Cleven in Stoughton, Wisconsin, called Art's Waltz.
So when Bruce used to play with the Goose Island Ramblers, Smokey George Gilbertson would introduce him as Loose Bruce the Goose, the scourge of Iowa County, the Hollandale Wildcat. His dad has the longest barn in Iowa County, and that was actually true. He hired a lot of hired men. And Bruce tells a great little story about how he learned to yodel from one of the hired men, and we'll follow that up with Bruce himself yodeling a tune that comes from the Moser brothers, these Swiss recording artists who toured through the countryside in the 1920s.
Roy Anderson worked for us. I've got his button accordion downstairs. When he died, his family gave me that. In fact, it's Roy that taught me how to yodel, quote, quote. I was a little kid, and he did a little yodeling, and I was probably 5 years old, and I said, Roy, how do you do that? How can you do that? How do you yodel? Well, he said, you got to eat a lot of grass, he said. You got to eat grass if you want to yodel. So I went out and started eating grass, and it worked. I'm yodeling now, so he was right, I guess.
Bruce Bollerud's rendition of Swiss Yodel Waltz by the Moser brothers. The Mosers toured southern Wisconsin in the 1920s and early 30s. Bruce's relatives bought their 78s, and Bruce learned this tune from an old disc.
All right, so there we heard once again the Goose Island Ramblers. I think so far, just in this little show, we've heard them do a Swiss tune, we've heard them do a Finnish tune, we've heard them do a Norwegian tune, and then we've heard them do old country and old time. So they were that kind of band. But we were talking about that Ditz Bruce, both the accordion book and the mandolin book. Well, now we're gonna listen to someone who learned a mandolin song from the mandolin book, and this is Christopher Lom. He's up in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and he loves to play this upper Midwest music just as much as any of us. So here we're going to turn it over to Christopher here.
Hi, my name is Christopher Lom, and here's a tune that Bruce used to do called the Tobacco Sutter's Waltz.
So, we're kind of doing that thing that we do on this show, even though it's a memorial show for one person. We're looking back at music that was 60 years ago, and we're looking at right now how the music is still alive. And that's what we need to encourage up here in the upper Midwest as far as traditional music goes, is that, this doesn't have to be a dying art form, and we need to make the connections that make sure that it's not. So Bruce's music and other folks who, for all their life played these tunes can live on. So, next up, another Jim Leary story and song.
After Wendy Whitford of the Goose Island Ramblers had died, there was a marathon recording session a couple of years later that featured Bruce and George Gilbertson of the Goose Island Ramblers, along with George's younger brother, Leroy, and a guy, Herbie Swingham, bass player that Bruce had played with in a number of bands before the Goose Island Ramblers. And they went to the basement of Jim Kirchstein's home in south of Mount Horeb. Jim Kirchstein, the guy who founded Kuka Records, and that was the label the Ramblers originally recorded on. And they did a wonderful set of three, at the time, cassettes. They'd been reissued on CDs of just a lot of stuff they'd never recorded. And there was a very pretty Norwegian waltz, the Mellum Beckham waltz, with some terrific heartfelt accordion playing by Bruce, and Smokey George Gilbertson's always inventive and moving fiddle. So that's the third tune I picked out.
They even said it themselves. Geez, that's a good waltz. All right, next up, we're going to have Mary Pat back. She's going to do the Red Rooster.
Hi, I'm Mary Pat Cleveland from Minnesota. And one of the things I really liked about Bruce Bollerud's collection, Accordion, Oofda, Let's Dance, is the eclectic nature of the tunes. We often think of upper Midwest tunes as just being Scandinavian tunes, and they're not. There's a point where the Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish immigrants came, started listening to other influences, and developed a whole different style. Here's a really great example of that. It's a tune that Bruce Bollerud collected from the fiddler in their band. His name was Wendy Whitford. It's an Uncle Wendy tune. Uncle Wendy doesn't know where he got it either, but it's clearly a ragtime tune from around the 1900s, and it's called the Red Rooster Two-Step.
great from Mary Pat. And there's already talk in the chat about, more talk about not letting this music die, And in order to do that, we're going to have to get more kids involved, more upper Midwest kids involved, more both, teenagers, early 20s, and then young kids. We're going to have to figure out solid ways to get this music back into their hands, and fiddles and accordions and banjos into their hands to play this music, So that's just my little my preachiness going on. Next up, we're going to go back to Jim Leary, and he's going to introduce another tune here.
Back in the late 80s, when Rick March and I started to produce the Down Home Dairyland radio programs, we wanted to have a tune to start the show and another tune to kind of go out on for all of the shows, to have some kind of framing. And the one we went out on was a really cool tune called the Franczuska polka, or French polka. It's a Polish polka invoking the French in Paris, I guess. But it's got some really hot accordion playing by Bruce and fiddling by George Gilbertson. And they do some mixed language, Jak się masz, which means, greetings in Polish, and then hello, Stash, this is Stanislaw Stasha. So it shows a little bit of their versatility, and they do a really lively version. So I sent that one along for your listeners. Mike?
I hope you've had fun on the episode tonight. It was just a joy to make, really. Jeez, what great people we have in the community that are playing the tunes today, and what a great band to commemorate, and a great accordion player, Bruce Bollerud. Sometimes in this community, in this old time community, what we do is, and it's been done for generations, is we make tunes to commemorate people. And so this one, this show, by the way, if I didn't say it already, this show was all Jason Busnewski's idea. He called me mid last week and said, hey, let's have a show since you're doing the show already, let's have a show for Bruce Bollerud. I was like, great idea, and I started working on it immediately after he said it. So we're going to close out here with Jason, and he wrote a waltz this week for Bruce, and it's a lovely waltz. And so for now and forever, this will be known as the Bruce Bollerud Waltz, and it's a great final commemoration on the show. Once again, if you want to support the show, PayPal, it's unarmedjournal@hotmail.com. Venmo, it's @ClawhammerMike. It's been a real pleasure being with you and treating Bruce Bollerud to a, one final goodbye. So, see y'all later.